Was this your first time seeing Sinners?
Yes, it
Or
was.
okay, because I know you usually are like a
Oh
Thursday
yeah, I am. I am.
type person.
My
Okay.
birthday's on Wednesday. We went Southern Cal, and we're on the coast. And so there was not a movie theater there. And that movie exists and it's out and I can't see it. People gonna be spoiling or somebody gonna say something on accident.
So many spoilers out there for
I
you
know,
too.
I
Like,
know.
yeah,
And
you had to
so
dodge a lot.
and I'm loving all these interviews with Ryan Coogler. I don't know if it's because of speech impediment or what, but he doesn't do a lot of interviews. And this time he seems to be on it. So I'm just soaking it all in. Anytime I see him on big platforms, little platforms, I'm just trying to get everything that he's kind of saying just to see what he's talking about. I even check out his own podcast that he has with friends that are directors and things like that. So I'm always kind of looking for that kind of thing. And it seemed to be riches of just him on everything talking. And so I've been trying to check stuff out and stuff been pretty good for the most part, not spoiling anything. And then I started hearing the conversation starting to bring up things more often than not. And I'm thinking like, okay, my mind is kind of like somebody gonna fool around and slip and say something that's gonna mess the whole thing up for me. And I had to just kind of back off. But I was checking out everything he was on and they did pretty good, not saying too much, but and I know how internet be interneting.
Yeah, no, I actually saw the trailer about a year ago, maybe a
Mhm.
year and some change, and
Yeah.
never seen an interview.
On purpose?
Black, well, a little bit and a little bit not. Like I hadn't watched anything in the last, like any of these interviews leading up to it because I knew I wanted to see it. And I did not watch the updated trailer. So
Mm.
the only thing I got was the teaser trailer by accident because I'm trying to wean myself off trailers.
Me
So,
too, but I
uh,
love them so much.
yeah. So I got the teaser trailer, which was about a year, I want to say a year ago, a year and a half maybe ago. It was a year and some change because it was almost like around Super Bowl. Not,
Oh,
it was yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that first trailer because it really just kind of showed that it was a period, you knew it was a period piece and you
right.
saw him with the machine gun
Yeah,
and that was
powerful.
it. And it was just
Yeah.
like, like it drew your interest. It showed some people dancing
Yeah.
and, it was a period piece and dude had machine guns. He said something real slick
Hmm.
and flicked a cigarette and I was like,
Uh-huh.
I gotta see this, and that was enough for me.
Yeah.
So
We should probably start.
We've been gone a long time. We back now. You twins? Nah, we cousins.
There are legends of people with the gift of making music so true. It can conjure spirits from the past and the future. This gift can bring fame and fortune.
Will somebody take me in your eyes?
But it also can pierce the veil between life and death.
You keep dancing with the devil. One day he's gonna follow you home.
Lie to you.
It's Jay. I'm back in for another one. And today I have with me.
you got Drew with you today. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm always doing good when there's some good new movie out there.
This is a feel good one too,
You know,
man. It sounds weird to say it's a feel good movie considering the content, but if you
right,
love
right.
movies, you love this film.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
It definitely has an energy to it. Normally we do like a half and half, half non-spoiler, and then dig into spoilers. So overall, what was your feelings and thoughts about this movie?
I give it an A plus. Like I give
Yeah.
it my top rating. I agree with those though that first stream of Rotten Tomato ratings. I agree that it does what a movie should do. It captured me in the moment and it made me a victim of the moment, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It made me feel like, oh, this is the best movie I've seen in a long time. It made me feel like I got out the car. I got to the car and I said, this is probably the best I felt since maybe American Fiction.
Wow.
but I could be blindsided. There could have been two or three other good ones in between.
Right.
I feel like it is a highly recommended film to watch twice for your entertainment value, to bring it all in. And then I believe there's that. What did I miss? I suspect that I am going to thoroughly enjoy seeing what I missed. And it's that good of a film. So, yes, that's my non-spoiler way of saying that it was masterful from top to bottom. There wasn't a weak point where I was like, they could have did better casting. Oh, they could have did better this. Oh, that character could have been stronger. Nah, I liked it. I give it a solid, strong A with,
Wow.
let's just say I give it a 98.9, just to be that teacher who's like, well, there's always room to improve. That,
Right, right, right.
that.
All right, and I agree with you, man. I've been excited for this film for a minute when I first heard about it. I was excited, and I thought it was kind of funny because we always have our Blade conversation. I'm thinking like, how are he going to announce a period piece vampire movie, with a black cast and beat Blade to the punch when Blade was announced years ago? Things are happening way before it's advertised, so I couldn't tell, but it seemed like it was coming along pretty quickly. So I was kind of curious about that aspect of it, but I kind of trust and enjoy his movies, so I was looking forward to it, however it was going to be. And then later on, I found out that like parts of the rights goes to Warner Brothers, and then after 20 years, it goes to him and his family. And I thought that was a brilliant and beautiful thing to ask for and to be granted. So it's just like, well, if it's something like that where it's gonna really go back to him, not that he don't already put his heart and soul into his work, but man, when you know that that art is for you, and it's your turn, for your solo, you're gonna give it your all. You sing well at the choir, but when it's your solo, you're gonna give it a little something. Show it out a little bit because this is the one that's gonna stand out and it's gonna showcase you. And seeing it, I would say if you saw the trailer, even though that's the movie, there's so much more to it. And so, and also I will say this, if for those who might want to see the movie, but are not into like a horror film or whatnot, I would say it's more deep than it is scary. And it's worth being a little uncomfortable for what you'll get from it. But I really dug it. So many things about it I really dug, and I would highly recommend it. So he filmed it on different kind of film. He did it in IMAX. He also did it on actual film, and they have 70 millimeter showings of it in different locations, probably about 5 different locations. And I got a chance to see it in one of them. I saw it in Oakland at the Grand Lake Theater, and it was a nice experience to see it that way, especially with an actual film. It's that different vibe and feel of it, and just the sound of the flapping in the background, that and then the imperfections on the screen, just all that kind of stuff. And I felt if I would go see a Quentin Tarantino movie, Hateful Eight, in that format, and I saw Oppenheimer in that format, of course I'm going to see Ryan Coogler's movie in that same format. So I
Yeah.
was definitely made a point to make that drive to see it in that format, and it didn't disappoint. Like Drew, I highly recommend. And so that was your marching orders. Check it out. We both enjoyed it, and now we're going to dig in. There's a lot to dig into, so this is a spoiler territory. If you want to know more before you go see it, listen in, and if not, step away. Come back and visit us after you see the movie. All right, Drew.
Oh, let me say this. I'm gonna get the sidetrack out the way because I love to derail us. I'm gonna derail us right out the way.
But I enjoy it. I love it.
Right out the gate, I'm about to derail us. Name a time Delroy Lindo missed.
Oh, he never miss.
Never miss.
Never miss.
And this right here was another one of those times where you was just like, he did it again. And he's not the star of the film. You
No,
know what I'm saying? Like, I just
no.
wanted to throw that out there just as like, man, Delroy Lindo don't miss.
And as many characters as he's done, he squeezed out another one I never seen before.
Yes.
It wasn't like,
Like
oh,
he
he's being blah 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 for a little twist. No, he is a different character with different strengths, different weaknesses, different insecurities, different inflections. Like he is the
is
character that he plays.
I wanted to make sure I got to that because we can get to talking about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I wanted to pay respect to one of the greatest actors of our generation that we've gotten a chance to see that probably doesn't get enough credit. Like I think we talked about it like during what was it, Five Bloods. Like we recognized it there.
Right.
But we, but we just gotta keep remembering like this dude really doesn't miss. And he was a big glue piece for this film. But to go back to like let's get into it. For the first time in
Yeah.
a long time, or if not ever, if you're not a Michael B. Jordan fan, like for example, I got a sister who's not a Michael B. Jordan acting fan, right?
Okay.
She feels like his acting is a little like she's waiting on him to turn the corner. And I called
Yeah.
her. I said, he just turned it. I said, this is it. This is because I agreed with her.
Yeah, yeah.
He's a
He's Michael
little,
B. Jordan.
yeah, exactly. And not in a good way, not like Denzel's
Right,
Denzel.
right.
Like it's just like, yes, he's Michael B. Jordan. I kind of need him to be somebody else in this film. I don't know why he's doing a biopic as Michael. Anyway, so he turned a corner in this film because, and it could be good direct. It's a combination of good directing, but it's also like, yo, he plays twins.
Yeah.
And usually that's really hokey. And what they have to do is place them in two different places,
Right.
do all these different things. They played opposite each other. He played, and I say they because it felt like it was two different people. He
Really?
played opposite of himself, and you forget about it
Yeah.
throughout the entirety of the film. I got in the car afterwards and I was like, yeah, like you could almost describe it like, well, the one who plays Smoke, and because Smoke did this, and it's the same dude.
Right.
He Michael B. Jordan played two people in one movie so masterfully
Right.
that I got another level of respect for him. And
Yeah.
so I think that part is one of my favorite parts when I'm thinking about like Delroy Lindo not missing, Michael B. Jordan playing two different people.
Right.
This is just me going down the checklist right
No, it's
now
fine.
of like the things that I kind of like without going into plot
Yeah,
and
yeah.
following the plot line, just me telling you what I love. Every time me and you get together and we talk about a movie, there's always a person that like for me, I'm usually discovering on a different level. And one, that young man who was singing,
Yeah.
his voice was very massive, like very powerful.
Yes.
But the girlfriend who did the hoodoo, who did the voodoo and whatnot, but she's also on Loki. She's on,
But I first
yeah.
remember her from Lovecraft
But
Country.
she's Annie. She's
Yes.
Annie in the film. Beautiful. She was very strong. I loved her character in it. I loved how Ryan Coogler did a couple of things that I'm not trying to start nothing. This is just my opinion. My
Uh-oh.
opinion.
When you
My
start
opinion.
when you start off
Again.
like that,
Okay. I thought I was sitting in the theater thinking this. And then I got home and Fantastic Frankie posted this the next morning. So I knew I wasn't the only one thinking it.
okay.
I thought I was thinking it because I'm friends with David F. Walker.
Okay.
But David F. Walker has a comic that he makes with two other gentlemen, Chuck Brown and Stanford Green, called Bitter Root. Ryan Coogler optioned the rights to Bitter Root a couple of, like a few years back.
Okay.
And you can just see Bitter Root all throughout that movie, like
Really?
all throughout the plot. So much more than you would see Blade. The only tie-in between Blade and this film, in my opinion, is that vampire.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
vampires are involved. Do you
well,
get what I'm saying?
yeah,
And then that's it.
yeah, but
Like
it's definitely not
vampires.
Blade. It's
Definitely,
definitely not,
definitely not. I think there's some people who are just like, oh, black vampire Blade.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? It's just like word association game in their head or something, but it should end there. Like,
Right. It's true. True.
but if you ever get a chance to read Bitterroot, it is Harlem Renaissance individuals who are in Harlem fighting these white people who are possessed basically by racism, and but they become these monsters that eat you. Not vampires. Black people can also become possessed as well. But point is, Bitter Root is very similar to this movie. It goes hand in hand. Ryan Coogler had that as a piece of inspiration also, I believe. In my opinion, I am not saying that this is what happened.
Right.
I am not even inferring that because I don't want me being adjacent to them to sound like
Yeah.
that's what it is. But I feel like he had some good inspiration from it.
But
Had to.
But wouldn't you think in this situation where you have almost like the literal devil coming after black folks that it would kind of that would be the direction or perspective of a black person seeing the situation? Not saying it's not similar, but I'm just saying
Mm.
that will
Oh
kind
yeah,
of, you
he
know,
yeah.
and I was surprised too that they didn't lean into, because when I first saw the trailer, I thought it was going to be like, okay, it's going to be like the quote unquote white vampires against the black folks trying to be free
Hmm.
or to trying to, live their life and stuff. And even though that was an aspect, they did not lean into that like you would have thought they would have. They kind of circumvented it away. It wasn't as racial as I thought it would be because the setup seemed like it would have been.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is had done some research and for writing and being around a person who did research about that period so he could write about that period
Uh-huh.
and him sharing information with me and then me doing research myself for a podcast, a history podcast I did a while back. And it was actually about the history of the area I live in now, where
Oh,
they talked about how the black workers, most of the black workers who lived in this region got along really well with the Asian workers. And there typically was
yeah.
those were partnerships
Mhm.
that always were rich and they always worked together. And diversity was a bigger thing throughout the Mississippi Delta, as
Right.
well as just in different, but as time goes on, those laborers, it kind of changes. But so there was, I liked that I got that you got a chance to see that. Also, I used to work with a skinhead. He was from Ireland. Gave me a lot of back history. He used to have he had this weird tattoo
Mhm.
that it always confused me. It was a black hand and a white hand shaking hands. And he was like, yeah, man, what the skinheads are about, and it's about the working class going up against it. He was like, so it was never about racism, like what
Oh,
we experience and how we see it from the way his origin story of it, right?
okay.
So it's interesting to see like who were mistreated when they first came to America and blacks got along, how Asians got along with the blacks when they came. But everybody who was adjacent to us
Yeah.
had a partnership and a friendship with us during hard times until they were accepted out of model minorityship into whiteness. And we've seen that we still kind of see how that kind of affects, like how certain portions of the Asian community is still waiting to get into white America,
Right.
but are just stuck in that model minority mode.
Right.
And in that, but before, like when they first get here, there is a partnership, there is a
Mhm.
kinship.
Right.
And you still see that in some neighborhoods too.
Yeah.
Like, where amongst second generations,
Hmm.
where they grew up in the neighborhood and they're like, oh, everybody here is cool. It's not like the stereotypes, whatever. So
Yeah.
I was really glad that Ryan Coogler put that in
Yeah.
because it is accurate to what you would find if you do your research deep enough of certain communities.
Right. And then also him from being from the Bay Area. Like I grew up with like, Mexican and
Hmm.
Filipino and all that kind of stuff. And so the Bay Area is especially, it's almost like a melting pot, especially, white folks too. You could kind of tell the difference when you see them anywhere outside the Bay. It's a different kind of vibe. And, they're your brothers and sisters. You don't think really nothing about it, even though some of the parents might be feel differently, but the kids that grew up together and went to school together and went through everything together have a different kind of connection. And so when I saw that, it didn't surprise me. It kind of reminded me of the Bay in a way. But there definitely is history with that kind of thing. So, what did you think when you saw the young man obviously went through some stuff entering the church? And it played out different to me than I thought the trailer showed it. I thought it was going to be something else. So, it kind of circumvented what I thought was going to happen for that scene.
It was a good setup for the movie for the beginning. It was a
Yeah.
good setup to let you know that there was some level of trauma or whatnot that took place, something big, and it was sometimes it's okay for you to know that someone survived.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to, and it's just like, oh, okay, well, let's see how he survived this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did observe in the beginning in that scene, like, why is this guitar broken?
Yeah.
Like that was the number one thing. I was like, and he wouldn't let it, it felt like he just wasn't gonna let it go.
Yeah.
And I think him being there at that crossroads, having to make that decision in that opening scene where his dad is telling him to kind of do that. I think it was a powerful way to get us, intrigued and to see like, oh, something. So yeah, I
Yeah,
liked it. Yeah. I can't see another way. That's how you know you loved a movie. When you like, I can't see another way it should have started
yeah, yeah,
or it could have started, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, because initially I thought they was going to kind of milk it because it definitely seemed like, especially with horror movies or stuff with horror aspects, usually it's this long build up where you almost forget you're watching that kind of a situation. And then, bam, it's just like now it's happened. Now you're in there. Now, some, it's like 10 minutes in, maybe 20 minutes in, and some are like from dusk to dawn and they wait almost an hour and you think you're watching a bank heist and these brothers doing this thing and you're in this brothel with breasts and vampires. That seem like it's almost out of nowhere.
That's been the other comparison to the Dust Till Dawn is everyone's comparison. And
Yeah.
I think that's a
But with this one, I thought it made it different from the beginning, which I was surprised they did. They showed you saw flashes, what kind of went down. It's just like, wow. I'm like, they giving us that already? Because, it was like a little, almost like jump scares, the
mhm.
flashes of what was going on. I'm like, wow, they're giving that up already. And that's pretty strong and brave to kind of give up that tension. Because the tension would be just not to show. You think you've seen that movie, or you don't know you're watching this kind of a
Yeah.
movie. Some people wasn't there, didn't know. And so you kind of giving that up front. But to do that and then double back and be like the day before, 24 hours, earlier, it's like, oh, they doing this. From the trailer, I didn't even realize that was the same guy that was singing. I was surprised. I didn't realize that was him. I thought it was a whole other character coming in there all messed up and tore up. And really, from the trailer, I thought he's gonna go in that church and bust into flames. And I thought it was gonna be like, oh, he went to that church. He turned and he's coming back to the church because he thinks that's home and that's not his home anymore. And this, he burst into flames or something like that. And so when he came in and nothing kind of happened with him, and the preacher invited him in, I'm like, wow. And then it flipped back, 24 hours earlier, and then you realize it's the pastor's son, and he loves music, and he got this guitar that his dad kind of being like, hey, unless you do your stuff in church, you ain't getting that guitar. So I took it from you. And he gave him the warning, right? And it's like warnings I've heard of before, especially with churches and stuff, where it's kind of like, you stay away from that secular music. You do music for the Lord. You don't go out there and do that music. Ain't nothing good out
Yeah.
there. You stick here, kind of a thing. And so that part I wasn't surprised about. That's kind of like that's what you would think that a pastor would
It
tell his son. But it was just kind of interesting too. You already knew pretty much his wisdom and his advice was true. And it's funny how we saw the receipts for that first.
Yeah, it's literally like the prodigal son story. Like the
Yes.
dad is like waiting there. I felt like it reminded me of the Color Purple's homecoming scene a little bit, but just it within its own genre, like
Right.
its own version of it a little bit, just because it's the same period,
Yeah.
type piece. But I love the beauty in which how they capture that portion that is real of Black life.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration. I mean, there's always oversimplifications in film, but
Right.
the factor that you still to this day see African American society divided to where you can walk into a church on Sunday and there's going to be some people there dressed to the nines doing
Yeah.
everything. Just like today was Easter, and I can guarantee you there were people who never go to church who walked into church dressed up because it's what you do.
Right.
And that idea that it's like, hey, you got a choice to make. Either you're going to go be with the sinners
Right.
or you're going to become a saint. And I love that that theme continuously for him was presented throughout the film because
Right.
in I would say there's a portion where I think it was Stack who had told him like he had to make a choice.
Yeah.
Like he didn't want, and when he made the wrong choice, he was like, all right, well, I don't want you in here. He wanted to keep him away from that evil. He knew what it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's real important. I think that was a real important scene. So yeah.
Yeah. Because that was a trip because he's kind of one that brought him in, but then also they just kind of needed him for that part of it. It was almost kind of like, I need you because you could fit through the window to rob the person, but I never want to see you doing this kind of stuff again. So it's almost like they used them to kind of bring people in to get this juke joint going. But the same people, like I said, pretty much who brought him in was the same ones telling him like, hey, I don't ever want to see you in another spot again. So I thought that was kind of interesting too. So
Which is my life's not even gonna say my life story, but I've lived that life
Yeah.
when, growing up in a neighborhood, there's always the drug dealers, there's always the person, the hustlers who do something nice for you
Yeah.
and then threaten your life. Like to then turn around and be like, now be better than me. And it's like, but you just pulled out a knot of money, gave me $100 and
Right.
said, don't do what I do. And it's
Right.
like, but but it was effective. I'm
Yes, it
not gonna lie.
was.
It was always effective for me uh to know that I wasn't welcomed in the game.
Yeah.
And I think when you have people who genuinely love you, that's
Yeah.
indicative. Like, which is that I always bring that back to like when Pac said, just because I live next door to the murderer, don't mean I want to,
Right.
Like, you know,
Well
every
said.
yeah, everybody has a conscience in our communities. And so
Yeah.
um I think the dynamic of him, me being like one of the younger cousins in my family structure, the dynamic of understanding what it's like to hop in the car with my big cousins and
Yeah.
just wanting to be a part of whatever they're being a part of,
Right.
doing what they want to do. The introduction to the brothers was very interesting to
Yeah.
me, like him rolling that cigarette for him.
Yeah.
And later for me, I really kind of started to notice that there was a tremor in his hand throughout the film.
Hmm.
And so as you got to reveal that they obviously had fought in the war,
Right.
hence them saying, like in the film multiple times, it was referenced.
Yeah.
But then once they had referenced the trunk,
Hmm.
and then once we saw what the trunk
Right.
was, we was like, yeah. And that was
Yeah.
back in the day when people really did come home from war with what they went to war with,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Because whenever it
uh,
got brought up before, they was like, no, we don't need the trunk yet. Like
yeah,
they, we don't need
yeah,
that quite yet.
yeah. And
So
apparently Mary knew what was in the
yeah.
trunk because
Hmm.
she was like, you don't need the trunk right
Right.
now.
Right.
So,
Right.
so I think introducing the brothers, like the cigarette thing was like, that's the most my brother's keeper type thing to show the even nature of their relationship.
Yeah.
Although one brother is clearly has a leadership vibe, but the other brother is still, rolling the cigarette for him, still like there. Each one
Right.
had a vibe of like, oh, they complete each other.
Yes, they do. But they had different marching orders in a way.
Yeah,
One was steering, the other one was the power behind the
yeah,
car. And I like how they played off each other so well. Because like even and it's funny because even like in the beginning of the movie when they showed the sun, it was almost like a glare on the camera, and it was like almost like there was two suns. And I thought, man, so he had a whole bunch of stuff with twin stuff kind of going through there. And with listening to some conversations he was having, talking about twins and having friends that are twins that are directors and speaking to them about, behavior and things going on with them. And just his attention to detail was just brilliant. And the things he would do, like when they're talking to the guy they buying the property from, and while one guy's talking to him and he's talking kind of reckless to him, they kind of split off. And then when one kind of left the focus of the guy,
yeah.
they changed the scene a little bit, and you see the other brothers right behind him. Like he got surrounded while he was just in the middle of talking mess. And
Mhm.
so even the way they moved was very powerful. And
Yeah, it
so
was that part, and then he just hands him the bag,
right.
and it was like that was almost like a jump cut in itself. Like it
Hmm.
was, because you knew if you was like, oh, they about to do something to him
Right, right,
because it
right.
was almost animalistic the way
Yeah.
like it was almost like pack like you were
Hmm.
watching a pack of wolves
Right,
hunt their prey,
right, right.
which there was this overall theme that I kept feeling about the two brothers, as though they came back almost to cleanse
Mm,
the space they left. Even though it was evident as time goes on, they're like, yo, they're just hustling.
yeah.
But there was something about like the way they spoke to the Klansmen.
Hmm.
Uh, spoiler alert. The way they spoke to the Klansmen or a real estate person or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like the
Yeah.
way they spoke to him, the way that they conducted themselves. I think it's always good when you see black men speak like men to other
Yes.
people. Like,
Yes.
so that was real important to see them not cower. And I think I always like when someone doesn't cower,
Right.
especially war veterans, people who, like the character has earned the right
Right.
to not cower, to not to talk the way that they should want to talk. Yeah.
Right. They kind of earn that within themselves to be like, I'm not putting up with that. I've done too much, been too many places, seen too many things, and I can defend myself. So you would walk a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense, like I said, them being war veterans versus the folks who never left. Yeah. And I thought it was kind of interesting too, how they kind of played with not necessarily play with religion, but kind of with religion and superstitions and stuff like that. And it's funny, I ain't heard this word since I was a kid with my dad in Alabama going to go see my granny. It was the word haint. And so
Yeah.
when they were saying like, haints and ghosts and just different things, I was like, wow, it's a trip. But it was interesting how people kind of believe different things and how even them not necessarily believing in those things, they still had an effect on them, you know? And so I thought that because normally when it's just something like voodoo or anything like that, it's just automatically pushed off as just evil and wrong. And that it was just interesting how this was kind of played. And when he was talking with his lady and he was talking about he did all this stuff and he left and, and she was saying like, well, you basically I've been protecting you. Like I did this thing, I made
Yeah.
this bag for you to kind of protect you out there. And I guess he's taking it as he did it all on his own. And she's saying, well, basically I've been quote unquote praying for you basically this whole time. And that's why you guys been all right. His this lady Annie. And then he brought the situation with his child that passed away. And he was
He-
wondering like if this is protecting me, how come it didn't protect him? I just kind of liked how stuff was kind of brought up and unraveled and it wasn't like tugged, it was just pulled at
yeah.
and it came into focus for you. It was you wasn't force fed, it was just kind of lightly given along the way. And so all that stuff really added up really nicely, because there was so much going on. You could have easily feel overwhelmed by all the information, how things are being dumped, why they're being dumped, what people are thinking and connections and things like that. I just think it was just masterfully given
Yeah.
and brought up and
Yeah.
acknowledgement of possibly supernatural things. Because really, you didn't know when he's talking like how far this stuff is going. She's talking this stuff and he's like blowing it off. But that's before he ran into some vampires too. So it's a
Right.
lot of stuff that, or him really thinking like, was I really protected? Like, did this thing, now he didn't think nothing of it and didn't think it worked, but yet and still he had it on him. Then gave it to her to recharge it. So
I think that that's indicative of most of us, even within like Christianity.
yeah.
Most of us, it all, and here's the thing, even within the concept of regardless of how rich your faith is, which is one of the most disappointing thing for devout Christians to hear sometimes.
Mhm.
It shouldn't be. One of the most devout things that the most devout hate to hear is that it's that faith of a mustard seed when you really think about it.
Yeah.
That guy who's going out who still knows how to come home. Once again, prodigal son story.
Right.
Like it's this idea that the redemption is always there if you just believe.
Right.
And sometimes like, no, it's more than just believe. You got to just do everything right. And it's like, he was out doing everything wrong, but he had faith in that little bag around his
Right.
neck. She had faith, and regardless of what it willed or not, we don't, like I think it was important for the film to set up the premise that this is supernatural,
Right.
and we cannot dismiss the supernatural.
Right.
We can be skeptical of it,
Right.
but if we dismiss it, then this whole vampire thing that's going to come up here in a minute,
Ain't gonna make no sense.
it ain't gonna make no sense, and you're gonna walk out the theater.
You have to build
So
an environment that you have your characters moving around in.
yeah, and this has to be a possibility. It has to be introduced subtly somewhere. And her accepting money that would look like it was still like Haitian money,
Hmm.
or like, and it's just like her accepting what the community had to give, which
Right.
this was a poor Delta community. Like this whole community, like the plant workers are being paid, and wooden coins that are only good down
Right.
at the exchange
Hmm.
place, and like that was something, and it's funny because you notice how she took what money
Yeah.
she, like that was good to those people.
Right.
And then later on, when the guy wanted to come and get some beer, or had come to the party, and all he had was that wooden little coin thing, and
Right.
she's ready to take it because she understands the value of someone's work.
Right.
and what they've done to get that. And that was another story that, like that's a lesson to some extent,
Hmm.
like to be learned of like
Right.
there was a sincerity behind them. Although they're partying and they're sinners,
Right. Right.
there's a righteousness behind these sinners.
Right. And it was both right. The money worked within her community, which she wasn't planning on leaving. His money was for the world, which he was planning to go back and revisit. And so those are kind of different concepts, but they both work, but in the right environment.
Right.
And so she was more hometown, he was more worldly. Yeah. Like I said, just the little subtleties, and it was all kind of needed. And it said bigger things with the little situations. All right, so I have two scenes that had tears running down my eyes.
Oh yeah, and I agree with you on that scene. Go ahead, say it, because I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Man, okay. So they're in that juke joint.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm trying not to get choked up, and I'm not trying to be funny, but it was very, very heavy. So it's preacher boys in there singing his blues. Like I've never seen anything like it, right?
Hmm.
And the way it started was kind of subtle, but it's funny because you see it from the head vampire's perspective. He almost sees it first. He almost sees it first, but then you're seeing like the music and the connection with music and how, narrative going on about how it goes past time and space and generations and things like that. And to hear that, that's powerful. And we've heard things kind of like that in a way about how powerful music is, and we feel it, because we'll be like, oh, those are the tribal drums of our ancestors that we play in hip hop today, or things like that. We hear references of that before, but I have never seen anything before where he's in
Yeah.
there playing and you see these characters, black figures from different times, like they're sprinkled in there slightly in the beginning, and you're kind of like, oh, and then they're talking about like the future, and you see, somebody that seemed like they've like Bootsy Collins in one of those kind of spaced out outfits playing the electric guitar, and then you see like somebody beating drums, tribal drums, and you see these dancers, and you see the DJ start scratching, and they got this music that's just kind of swirling. If you think of like a tornado, and each instrument or sound or decade or passage of music, you're just getting a larger portion of it when it swings by your way. It was breathtaking. It was breathtaking. It starts with the music and then it goes with the people and the interactions. And you go with the other ladies enjoying the music in the corner. And you see some girls over there twerking, but then you see some women from the 30s over there as well. And it's just like this visual journey of connections of music. And at the same time, it's cut with the quote unquote devil or the vampire seeing it. And he's seeing it for what it is. Like we're seeing, matter of fact, the vampire's interpretation of all the stuff that's there. Like he's salivating, getting hungry for it. Like he's seeing it. And it kind of made me feel in a way how we're very powerful. And it's more to us than we know. And how we could sit there and we'll use things and not know what we have, and the outside will recognize it and see it, but we don't see it. We think it's light, we think it's casual, but it is so much more. And another set of eyes could see it for what it really is, and we could be among it and feel it and not really know what we're tapping into and what it is. But you're getting this narrative of how it could split worlds and open up different things, and it's just like the power of music or the power of us as a people, of our creativity. Just Ryan Coogler was doing it with the images that he was doing. When that kid was playing that music and it showed the sky opened up and the roof on fire, all these things kind of happening, like music transcending, his visual interpretation of music transcending. Ryan Coogler did the same thing visually for me to see that. It just brought tears to my eye just to see how far away all that stuff is and how close it is at the same time. And you know, it it was just so much. It was so much. It was powerful. It was dangerous. It's just interesting. But something that some guys did to put a bar together to make a few dollars to come up was the same thing that was almost a beacon to this evil that couldn't wait to get his hands on it and do something totally different or use it, maybe in the way that it should be used. And I'm not mean in a bad way, but use it for the power that it actually is,
Yeah.
And it's almost like the things that, you know, are powerful music that we listen to or images we see and it's being turned on us as well. And we're not taking the gravity of what is being given back to us, you know, corrupted. And
Yeah.
we're still just in that juke joint thinking it's just a nice beat, you know,
Yeah.
and it's a Trojan horse. It's that beauty, that's that power, it's that insight, it's that connection, it's that community. It can be corrupted. And we just have it for background music to dance to. And some know what it is, but I'm just saying it was a lot in that scene, man.
I had a visceral response to it. It was one of those things where it made me feel like I wanted to stand up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like it literally made something flow out of my body. And it wasn't about the music, it was
right.
about the imagery.
Yeah.
And the imagery was that powerful. Questlove has a book called Creative Quest.
Okay.
And when I read Creative Quest, one of the things that he struggled with in his creative process was that he would listen to Stevie Wonder. And this is an example he gave. He would listen to Stevie Wonder, and then he would go in the studio and he would make his version of that. And
Mm,
then his version of that would end up being like, a famous Roots song.
mm,
And he would be like, oh, that sucks. Because when he started making it, it was like Master Blaster. But then it came out to be like, you know what I'm saying? Like some other song that we know and love is something different. But
yeah.
he originally caught inspiration from Master Blaster.
Mm,
And the next generation is already like listening to what Questlove did, and they're doing their version of it. And
right.
he's always wondered, like, is it really my creativity if I feel like I borrowed from someone else? Because he feels like, yo, this was me trying to do Stevie, and it turned out to be something that's acceptable now, but it's not Stevie,
Right.
right? So as I'm saying is how that pertains to like when you're being a creative, you're tapping into your past, your future, all these different things. And so for him to, in one scene, show how we have this force within us creatively
Right.
to tap in to the past, the future, and it looks different. And I think the one thing that I loved about that particular scene was that he didn't pollute the scene
Right.
with images that would appease people to say, well, he didn't have like a gospel choir in there. This was about that scene was about sinners having fun.
Right.
That scene, so it was like, this is what juke jointing is from back then to in the future to we don't know what it's going, you know what I'm saying? But
Right.
this is what it is. This is this collective thing. So when the head vampire was kind of like, I want to see my people again too. And it's like, because he had his folk music, he had his thing,
Right.
but he didn't have the power to get them to show up. To get, like it didn't have that. And even if he had Preacher Boy singing for him, his people wouldn't have shown up.
Yeah.
I just because I think you got to have soul. Like when you create something from your soul, that what showed up is something that's everlasting.
Right.
If you create something from your mind, it perishes with the earth. It perishes from which it came. But when something's created from something from a supernatural place,
Right.
it's eternal. And I'm not saying, and I'm not making like some, race related comment about like, because there are white people who make music from their soul.
Yes, for sure.
And, like, but it's like, and I guess we don't know what could have happened, but that was his way of, he wanted to see his people again. I guess he wanted to be able to have control over that thing, that power that he had in that to summons that. And not every black person who picks up a pen and a
Right.
pad and every person who sings can do that.
Right.
Some of us can get close and imitate it, but we know every now and again there's only one or two people who do something that is generational talents. And when they sing, when we hear them, it's something different. Like you may not enjoy their albums,
Right. Right.
but you enjoy a performance. Like Whitney Houston had a voice that summons that type of power.
I think
But
Fantasia does too.
oh, Fantasia has a way that makes you feel like Leandria Johnson and
Mm,
Fantasia both have voices that make me want to like just rock back and forth and just get my like it's just a soul healing.
right.
Like it hurts in here and I didn't and they're healing. It is bomb. It is like and I'm not saying bomb.
Yeah.
It's bomb. It's like a like bomb in Gilead. Like it's yeah, it is a healing force
Yeah.
to their voices. And there's some people, yeah, there are every church back in the day, everybody had one, whatever. There are very few people who show up in this world who get a chance to share that type of talent.
Right.
Um, and they usually do come from the church and they usually get stolen from the church at some point.
Right.
And the church has always struggled with keeping people in there.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I
Donnie
thought,
Hathaway was one who had that, but go ahead.
yeah, yeah, Donnie Hathaway for sure. That's a good call. But you saying that made me think of something too when you said that. Like, if he would have got Preacher Boy and turned him, would he even still have that gift like that? Would it even be the same thing? Or was he going to keep him alive and use it to pull? Or, but I guess for him to get the benefit of it, he would have to make him a part of them. And that kind of, that was kind of interesting because okay, so when the head vampire shows up and he shows up with, the clans people, the husband and wife team, and they're playing music, right? And I'm thinking like, how are they a traveling band? He just met those folks, and how do you even know that they even play music? 'Cause I was kind of tripping because I was like, well, when he went to their door, I did see the clan outfit, but I didn't see a guitar, no instrument. So when they were sitting there and singing together and moving in unison, I was like, what is going on with that? And then you kind of find out, like in this lore, that it's almost like a hive mind mentality. They feel and share everything. He could take language, he could take, thoughts and memories and things like that. So they're kind of tied together like that. And I like how they didn't necessarily say exactly that's what was going on, but you kind of, as you see more things happening, it kind of explained itself. And I'm like, wow. And so it even changed the type of music he was even playing. So when they couldn't get inside the church and some folks had left and something happened where a lot of them got turned and they were doing their little revival outside the barn, their music had kind of changed up, right? And even that, it kind of like, kind of folded. And it was interesting and it was kind of sad too that his offer to the folks that was left to, join, out here, they're going to kill you anyway. Like you'd never be considered a person to them. And this, that, and all this kind of stuff. Like you could be with us and live forever. Like he wasn't making necessarily a bad deal. And it's a shame that you losing your soul is a better deal than living in society. You know what I mean? Like that's a shame that that would almost sound like a better offer. But then it was also interesting too that even though they had the community and all those different people together and they were in a unison, dancing and stuff, doing their own thing, it was still corrupted. It was still corrupted. And even though, like, okay, when I heard him talking about the community and everybody being as one and loving each other and stuff like that, yeah, that makes sense. That sounds good. I'm like, yeah, I guess that sounds pretty good. But when I saw what that looked like with the different people doing it and the music and the tone, it automatically took my mind to thinking like, yeah, like us here in America, where our religion is gone and our voice is gone. It's like it's a pale reflection. We saw what it could be inside the juke joint, and we saw what it was outside. And it wasn't the same thing, even though it was almost kind of like, well, what was here is now here. But it wasn't the same. It was
It was gentrified.
it was
It
it was
was
corrupted.
corrupted.
Yes,
It was
yes.
completely corrupted. All
Even
those
though,
black people were doing Irish jigs.
yeah, even though it was all connected, and it was just like,
Mhm.
is that what that looked like? You know what I
No,
mean?
well, if you like, hey, let's get into it. Like, not to go, now I'm not gonna sidetrack this, but that's what you were
Yeah.
saying is absolutely correct. And this is one of the things we have to watch out about, not appreciating who we are as African Americans as
Yes.
the African part of that. Because when we start tying into the American part of it, America is not a race. It's
Right.
not, you know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes people get to thinking America is a race. And
Yeah.
so therefore you start erasing your own actual identity and
Right.
what's innate to you. Remember this one thing. Whoever is at the top hurt everyone in this. Like everyone got hurt when he got hurt.
Hmm.
And when we start chasing leaders and we start chasing individuals, like whether it's through church or politics, when what's at the top gets hurt, it's a trickle down.
Yes.
So we have to remember, when so like you take a look at when these megachurch pastors make mistakes because they're human, but
Hmm.
when people put so much stock into them and then they have their failures, the rest of the church tends to suffer.
Yes.
And, that's the same thing. We have to stop making these little mini towers of Babylon. We got to stop chasing this whole thing of like, hey, let's all come together and
Right.
let's all find some common ground. Because typically the one person, it's always going to be one person who's like, and now I'm sharing what I know with you, and now you know what I know, and I know what you know. And this is as a black man who lived in the evangelical world for a little while and understanding that evangelical is not exclusive to whiteness because black evangelicalism is just as colonizing and can be just as harmful to African American community as white evangelicalism. But as a person who was adjacent to white evangelicalism, one of the things that they loved was the concept of, hey, you bring your culture, let me learn from you. Let me get a little bit from you. So now all of a sudden you're sitting in this position of power, like where you feel like, oh man, they're learning, they're growing from me. It's
Right.
just enough to just to like, hey, it's basically let me get some of that swagger from you. Let me get some of that juice you got.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn how to do your dances. I'm gonna learn how to talk. You'll talk. I'm gonna learn how to dress the way you dress. And in the meantime, I'm gonna give you some of my knowledge. And in a lot of cases, the individuals who are giving you the knowledge may not even understand that the knowledge that they're giving you is a false knowledge. They may
Right.
not even know that they're giving you a colonized gospel.
Right.
And so this is one of the reasons why we have to do our own work to decolonize the gospel and not just accept some things as tradition because it's comfortable to our soul.
Yeah.
We do have a responsibility to actually get very uncomfortable and to learn fully. Now, back to the movie, away from that deeper narrative that, I'm just trying to skate on top of. I think this movie did thoughtfully and intentionally paint a picture to show us as African Americans, like how we have to show, like, hey, sometimes we can literally be killed. We can be bitten. We can be all these different things. And they still will be like, now come do this jig. Still
Right.
come get in line, still come do these things. And we'll still do the song and dance because we need that check.
Right.
And
Also, a thing that kind of stood out to me too was how it started off with, in a way, perceived kindness, or offering. Like, these are the aspects of the situation. You live forever. You know, take no mess from
yeah,
nobody. This, that. And for the ones that didn't come over, it was like the turning of the screws. You know, it started to be like threatening of your family is going to be in danger if you don't come out here. You know,
yeah,
you're going to
exactly.
lose
We're gonna
this if
come
you don't
get your
come out.
daughter.
So
Yeah.
all this stuff, and it's just like they use the same stuff today, very similar to how things move today. When things are not
hmm
adhered to, then the threats and the turning of the screws get amped up. So seeing that was kind of powerful too.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that they used, which has another spiritual crossover, is that they had to be invited in.
Yeah.
I love that factor that they had to be invited in.
Yes. Yeah.
And without that invitation, it was just like a clear, we can't go there. And
Yeah.
so, which makes even the threats almost like even more crazy because it's sort of like they're so limited. But I'm looking at it through the scope of some people out in there can't call back to back to the village or the main, and say, hey, don't let them in, don't invite them in.
Right.
Like they're gonna
Right.
get in the way, like they're gonna get invited. They have to get invited in. I
Right.
thought that putting that limitation there was brilliant because other than that, why come they just didn't go bite the clan from the get-go and bring the clan? You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
I love that it was like, hey, you got something we want and we want to, it's like this saying out, just how they tell you to put the silk tie on and instead of like, but just like it's clearly a noose, and they be like,
Yeah.
no,
Right.
it's a necktie, put it
Right.
on.
Right. Right. The whole thing with him not getting the clan, I took it as he probably didn't want that kid to be killed, or he had other things to do with him. He,
Yeah, it would
you
have
know,
introduced way too much Because think about how many other people they would have brought. You would have
Yeah,
had to create more central characters to survive.
yeah, yeah.
You would have had to create, you would have had to pull out the trunk quicker.
Right,
You would have had to reveal it would have mucked up everything. I like the way that they revealed it later. I think the way they revealed the clan later was perfect.
right. I thought it was funny how you know how Mary's gonna go out there and fix everything, right? Like the only white woman in the
My
juke
wife
joint.
literally said, "That's so," like it was a quiet
She,
spot, and
she
she
had
literally said, "That is so stupid."
Yeah, she had to get her Karen on. She was gonna
That
show them. She was gonna fix it. You were
mhm.
already safe with the people. You were already accepted and safe. But she had to go out there. And it was kind, but it was like she was in over her head. And even seeing that and film that, like everybody's like, man, I got a weird vibe from them. Like if you got all those folks in the doorway saying no, what do you think you know more than them? And I know she was trying to look out for them and get that money and all that kind of stuff, but it was just like just the privilege of of thinking.
You said it. It was because in this, we've seen that though.
Yeah.
We've how many times have you been with one of your friends, and if you're watching the podcast, you see I'm pointing to the inside of my hand, one of your friends where you be like, hey man, like all of a sudden your black spidey sense is just like, hey, maybe we shouldn't go down the street. Maybe you shouldn't say that to the security guard. Maybe, and your white friend is just like,
We're not gonna take it.
no, why not?
Okay.
Why not? And you're like,
Okay. I'm going to counter you with girlfriends and mothers. Getting sons and husbands and nephews
mhm.
in situations that should
Which
just be let's take the loss and it's safer for us not to encounter.
which is what I felt like Grace did in the movie.
Mm.
When she was like, when she invited them in,
Yes,
like she made that decision
exact
for everybody because of
exactly.
her emotion.
Okay,
Yes.
that's fair. That's fair. Grace did.
Yeah.
So we have
She signed all of their, including her own, she signed all of their death certificate.
but did you figure that they were kind of ready for it? Because they was already kind of geared up for them to come
It
through,
did seem
right?
like they were gearing up, and I guess she was like, no time better than now because they were stopping her at first, and then she just said it. And they was
Mm,
like, well, let's go then. Like now let's go ahead and mount
okay.
up. I think he wanted to be more strategic. It felt like because she was in the middle of throwing a fit
Yeah.
once he said, I'm gonna come, like we're gonna get your daughter then.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, like we still gotta figure a way. He's like, if we can make it till sunrise, I think the strategy was to chill till sunrise.
Right. Right.
Which do you realize it wasn't until like later that it dawned on me why Remy was smoking, why the lead vampire character was smoking like that. Never clicked with me was that he was a vampire. Here's the
Yeah.
thing. The vampire part was introduced after that scene. Like, like it didn't make sense to me at first. Like, why is he smoking? Did he just fall out the sky or something like that? But the idea that that vampire was out during the daytime, the factor that they was driving down the road, he was singing, like what made him get up? Like why come he didn't come get them at night?
And so, okay, I took it that he was being chased out of town, and that's when those
Oh, you think he really
the
was legit being chased out of
yes,
town?
because Native Americans came
Okay.
to the house of the
They
Klansmen
did come to the
asking like, "Hey,
house.
did you
Yeah.
see this guy come up to your house?" And she up there trying to defend them, and that's what got them killed.
I guess, yeah,
And when
I
they looked
guess
back and saw the sun was setting, and say, "We gotta go," even though she had a gun on him, he gave a blessing that they would be safe and protected, and they left because the sun was going down, and they knew what was going to go down.
I'm with you now. Remember, I said I got to go watch it twice because that makes perfect sense. See, in my head, I'm like, when he comes running out, I'm like, well, and then once it's revealed that he's a vampire,
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense as to why he's smoking because vampires can't be out in the daytime. But then I was like, but why was he out in the daytime?
yeah,
You just reminded me he was being chased
yeah,
by the vampire hunters. And
yeah.
they were like, hey, we're not about to chase out because since we're vampire hunters, we can't be out at night, really. Like we
Right,
got to get up out of here.
right.
Because once he's going to be in full power, he's going to come after us.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the Klanswoman was acting like that he was lying. Because when he first was knocking on the door, said, "Let me in, I'll give you these coins. The Indians are after me." And they were like, "There's none in this area, blah, blah, blah." And then, like I said, later that evening, they came to the door looking for that guy.
No,
And it's
you're
funny
absolutely
because I
right.
did also recognize him from the kid walking into the church and they had those quick flashes. I saw him in there. If you wasn't really looking for it, you wouldn't have thought anything of it. But they showed him in that flash when the choir boy was
Oh,
walking
okay.
into a church. But yeah, he was being chased down, and those Native Americans were trying to help them out.
It's a good movie, top to bottom. Like the factor that there's so many little bitty Easter eggs with deeper meaning to the concept of sinner life. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Like as we see it, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
and how he did a good job of not trying to chase the hero's arc in depth, so to the point that he created this big. You rooted for everyone that you're supposed to root for just because they're well-written characters, not
Yes,
because you were rooting for the plot to unravel the way you see it. I guess, if anything, the central figure of the film is not the twins. The central
right.
figure of the film is really Sammy, or is really just the choir boy. And yeah, so it's like, another real quick side note.
Yeah,
Another person who's becoming a baby Delroy Lindo is Omar Vincent Miller, the guy who played Cornbread.
yeah. I haven't seen him in so long. It was weird to see him with gray hair. It was good to see him.
He
It's good
he
to see him.
he's in some good stuff. Like, and he makes you like him as a character.
Yeah.
I was just thinking back because he was in that movie with Samuel Jackson, and he held his own pretty good. The one that was on oh man, the one with Dominique Fishback and Samuel Jackson on Apple TV.
Oh, he
Uh,
was on that.
hmm
With him losing his memory and I can't think of the name, but it has a weird name. But it's when he
Yeah.
was losing his memory, he was taking his experimental medicine to help him get his memory back.
Yeah. He's been in a few good shows, on and on, off of TV. And I know he's been a child actor, but he was a child actor growing up, but he's also just been in some pretty good stuff,
Yeah,
sprinkled in here and there lately. But he's gonna be one of those good character actors. And I want to give people their flowers for holding their own,
yeah,
because you can mess up a good movie by just not being the right, being quite right.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't take
And
much to throw it off.
I feel like everyone worked well. Like there just wasn't anyone who I was like, they could have saved that. They could have cast better.
Right. Even Saul Williams, I was surprised to see him in there. I was pleasantly surprised, but I haven't seen him in a while, but it was good to see him.
Yeah, like there's so many people. The young lady who played Pearline,
Jamie Lawson.
yeah, another good young up and coming actress. She was in The Woman King. She was in the Emmett Till movie.
Oh, I couldn't watch that, but that's okay.
It's one of those. Yeah, it's not a. You can't. You really can't. It's not a. It's a hard watch. It's
Yeah,
not.
I couldn't
It's
do it.
a. Yeah, that's another story.
Yeah.
But everyone held their own. It was funny. I went to go see the movie with my son and my wife, and my son, who is going to be going to school to be a director.
Oh, wow.
This was a necessary thing. It was so necessary for him to see it. But we had the age-old funny thing that always happens. There were two sex scenes in that movie.
But spoken about a few times. I was almost like, what's up with that? I was almost surprised because one, usually in black films and stuff, there's not a lot of sexuality in it like that. And if it is, it's not like that. And it
Yeah,
was referenced like five times at least, you know. Even Remick even made a mention of it, you know, speaking a different language to character, talking about licking, and it was
that
just
is right. That is right. Yeah, yeah, that movie
it
did.
came up a lot. It came
Yeah,
up a
yeah,
lot.
it did. It went real,
You
real
know, it showed
songs of
and told.
yeah. If you don't know because you haven't seen it, well, real Songs of Solomon a couple of times.
All right,
If you're a
pushing
real church,
buttons.
if you're real churchy, you know what I'm talking about because it's mentioned in the Bible there in Songs of Solomon. But
It's referenced in different ways, from licking to pushing buttons.
yeah, so
You
I
know.
thought when he said that to him in the car, it
Mhm.
brought that back to me having those same kind of like conversations with my younger uncles and older cousins where
Yeah.
they would say stuff like that to me, right? We all have inappropriate uncles and cousins that will tell you that type of information. And or so I thought that was just funny, but then, it goes to show the influence that they had on him because he was listening.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but I do think that there is a dignified way that you have sexual content in movies,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I think that they handle the sexualization of African Americans perfectly. And
Yeah.
I think it gets mishandled. And the idea that like he comes home to this woman that he can't bear the grief, he can't bear to be there all the time. But he
Right.
also is so connected to her soul that he can't bear that when he's with her, within a few minutes, he has to be with her, you know?
Right.
And I thought that was more romantic of a scene than a
Yeah.
hypersexual scene,
For
you
sure.
know?
For sure. And I thought it was both beautiful too, that they both kind of had to express their true feelings to the women that they loved.
Hmm.
Even though it wasn't in a clear way. It was clear, but they were forced to do it. How about that? You know, even when they were
Yeah.
talking in third person, they were still had to say it. They had to give both of them their story.
I almost feel like when Annie said, "Am I gonna make you have to say it or whatever?" I almost felt like his profession, for a second there, I was like, did Annie put roots on him to make him say this? Or,
But the
it
way it
felt that
went, you
way.
never
It
know. It's
it
quite
did feel that way.
possible.
Yeah, it felt that way. Like it
Yeah.
was like, you know the connection we have, and you know
Right.
what root is on you. Go ahead and just
Right.
say what it is,
Right.
because it's what it is. But
Yeah.
root
And
or no root, it still was like part of their love affair. And the factor, spoiler alert, once again, I know I don't have to keep saying it. I just like saying it.
you're funny.
The factor that they were connected even in death.
Yeah, man, that was the other part that brought tears to my eyes. But before we go there, it's funny because Mary had something that Michael B liked too, that made him profess his love.
Yeah. 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 Well, see, so what I picked up on about that relationship was one, that he was pimping her out in Arkansas. I don't know if, do you remember when
What?
you didn't pick up on that?
No,
Okay, then
no, no.
maybe I missed
Hey,
it.
I ain't saying you wrong, but no,
Dude, I'll be all over the place. I'm more
no,
than
no,
likely wrong.
no.
But
You
okay,
could be right.
did I not mishear when he said, remember you selling ass in Arkansas? Did he not say that? Did he not say that in the film?
I don't think I heard that, but it's
And then he stopped him and said, "No, I was not doing that." And then he I could have swore that was an exchange in that conversation when they was talking about money.
okay. You know what? I didn't think of it as pimping out, but I almost thought that they were hustling together. This is okay. This is how I took it in my head. They were running games on folks out there,
Hmm.
and she's passing black person because her grandma is half black or whatever, and that they were out there running games with her, passing, getting with a rich white guy. She was supposed to take his money and meet up with him, and they were going to leave together. He left her with the white guy and felt that she'd be safe and better off there. And she didn't want that. She was waiting for him
That part was
to
clear,
make it right.
but for him to have enough influence to get someone he was with to go be with another man, by very definition, sir, that's pimping.
My name is a pimp named Slickback, and I believe I may have misplaced some merchandise at this residence.
That's
But
fair.
when he was in there, what did he say when he became the
Fire.
vampire? He said, "Y'all can't leave me in here." He yelled out, "Y'all can't leave." We gotta wait till transcripts get out. I could have swore he said, "Y'all can't leave all this pimping in here," or something of that nature. I could have swore he referred to himself that way also. So maybe he said pent up
I
in
don't
here
think it
like
was a
this.
situation. Okay, this movie did have some comedy in it, but I don't think that's what he would have said.
Hi, this is Future Jason. I'm currently editing this podcast, and I wanted to bring you an important service announcement. Drew was correct in saying that Stax indeed said, "You can't hold up all this pimping in here." I was mistaken, and Drew was correct. Now back to the podcast in progress.
You
I
are
really,
funny.
I think that there's a space where there is some truth to what I'm saying, that
Yes,
there's
I
that he
believe.
used her,
Yes,
that he
no, I
was
believe
using
it.
her the wrong way. Now, the factor that he felt seeing her was the first time you saw his humanity in that way, where like you could tell he didn't care about hustling this, that, and other, but he couldn't look her in the eye initially. He wanted her to kind of go away, and he couldn't even turn her direction at first. He kind of
Right.
froze up. So there was something old. He felt
Yes,
like old to her.
because I figured that they was together before, and like I
Hmm.
said, and also his concern 'cause when she showed up and he looked up and saw his brother was trying to look to make sure his brother didn't see him with her. And I'm thinking like, what happened between them? The reason why their brother would have an issue with her even being there or them being together. You know what I mean? He seemed concerned about it. So I kind of wonder what was the other story with them, and was it like a thing where leave that girl alone? It's gonna be hard in 2025, so it's sure enough gonna be hard back back here in the past. Your counterpart in real life, Michael B. Jordan, the actor, he kind of got some heat for that too. So he can't be doing that back here in Mississippi either. But
Yeah. I like the Mary character in the sense that that was a part of, the passing black woman was a big part of society back then too, and
yeah,
everything that represented. I thought was pretty interesting. Like her character didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel like they were whitewashing or like just throwing in a character that was white. Or I think they
yeah,
did a really good job of having a. So when people say a diverse cast, this is what
yeah,
I'm talking about. Like
yeah,
they played it very well.
yeah, they did.
Yeah. I am not a fan of the Oscar movies typically. Like there
Right.
every now and again, I would say one out of the five that are usually nominated for Best Picture are ones that I enjoy watching. Other times I watch it because we should say we're watching them, right?
Right.
But they're just a little bit too pretentious for me. This is one of the films that I kind of wished would have released during an Oscars, like during the Oscar season, so to speak, because
Yeah.
they typically release them during that 1 to 2 month frame for consideration. And this could still, your film can still be considered, but rarely do you hear of films that get released around this time of the year getting an Oscar nod. It still can,
Do you think
but
this kind of movie would even get it though?
no, it should.
But it would be nice
But
to see it get ignored, and that almost sheds light on it as well. So sometimes, even if you're not going to be accepted, standing outside the door does bring a spotlight of the injustice of it.
I think there's a couple of different things that you have to look at that is not ignorable. Like Ruthie Carter should
Ooh,
you can't ignore
no.
her contributions to wardrobe in this film. Like
Ludwig, the
uh
music.
who shot this, how they shot this.
Hmm.
So much of this film should be nominated for the top awards. And I can't imagine that there's going to be some like they're going to raise the bar. If you had something that was already ready for print and you saw that, you sat down and watched this,
Yeah.
you probably are going back to the drawing board on a few things. And I like there was this so what's funny in real life, as I was sitting there in the movie theater, I was like, it almost feels like it ends at one point.
Yes.
And so there were people who actually left the theater
Same here.
and
Same.
did not see the real actual ending.
Right.
And I love that, like, they gave it a real end, like, they gave it another ending. Like, they gave it that, all right, like, I felt like that was Coogler's way of saying, like, nah, man, I took care of all them plot holes.
Yeah.
Like, everything that you think I ain't think about, I did think about. And this is a good movie, top to bottom. And this is a movie for my people. This is a movie for us. So, if so I kind of like it not being, I like it away from award season, right?
Yeah.
Because I like it being ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the point that I wanted to make is that I like that this movie belongs to us. And yeah, I was in a movie theater with a bunch of white people,
Yeah.
but I love that that end scene made them uncomfortable, but it said something to my soul. Like not the like all of the end, the whole entire end, because you
Okay.
go through feeling oppressed with these people for a minute, even though it's
Yeah.
supernatural film, whatever.
Oh, okay. I'm
And
sorry
it
because it's almost like three different endings, and now I'm just
there
not
is.
getting what you're saying. Okay, because
Yeah, but even all forms
yeah,
of the endings, like
yeah,
you get what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah,
Like as he closed out
yeah.
every storyline,
Hmm.
me and my son did debate this.
Okay,
So away from Oscars, talking about the endings of this film, because you
okay,
mentioned there's three different endings. So I'm gonna talk about the second ending, so to speak, right?
okay.
Second ending, he goes to take care of business with the Klan. And my son was like, was that necessary?
Really?
Were we even thinking about them? Like he was like, if that was cut
Hmm.
and we never was even thinking about like if they never brought that up again, would you have cared whether he got revenge or whether he went after them or anything at all? And I'm thinking, I kind of get his point because that's where he scores the film a little less than I did because he's
Yeah,
like, he felt like the Klan scene was self-serving or serving to just so, just the Just Us audience. And I'm like, nah, I feel like it was a good closeout for a soldier.
I think it was balance.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is the way, and these are his words on it, he was just like, he was like, it's almost like that scene was like Michael B. Jordan being like one of the implements of Michael B. Jordan. Like, hey, and then I'm gonna shoot a bunch of people, even though I'm like super outmanned, and I'm gonna run up and throw a grenade, and I'm gonna do all the super like he had to just do some superhero stuff, and it was like, yeah, I could see that probably or whatever, but like, I thought that ending as a comic book reader,
Yeah,
I didn't mind it because how many times is Batman, Superman, they take on the Klan a lot
yeah,
by themselves,
right,
and it's the same scene, so why not? Why come this soldier wouldn't come back with the ammo
right.
and take out a bunch of Klansmen?
Because they were introduced and really not even only for the revenge part, but also the conclusion to the story of a plot line that was brought up before when the head vampire Remick brought up the fact that, hey, that guy sold you this place, he's with the Klan, and they're gonna come in down here and kill all y'all anyway. They were coming to do y'all in.
Dude
So
yeah.
this is the rest of that coming, and then they were gonna come in there and take you guys out. This is a slaughterhouse because when they introduced that space in the first place, and he's like, "What's this on the floor?" And he's like, "So what happened here?" Because when I saw that, I'm like, "This is a slaughterhouse." The floors are stained in that spot, and so I kind of like how everything was kind of connected and the big plot. The plot twist is everybody's gonna die that night anyway. They were gonna go out
Yeah.
one way or another. And
Well,
so to see the conclusion of those guys coming, thinking, hey, we getting our spot back.
felt to me like, hey, these two black men intimidated me, made me feel bad. So now I'm coming back because it was strength in their numbers. Now I'm coming back with more numbers, and we're gonna get this property back. We're
Mm,
gonna take their money. We're gonna take everything that they got. So the Klan didn't always wear robes when
yeah.
they didn't have to.
Well, there were judges and police officers and everything else. Why would they? Store owners?
Yeah. So,
Well,
but
Ice Cube said it best. The KKK wear a three-piece suit.
yeah, I kind of feel like that ending was good in the sense that let's just say
Was it a
sometimes you
bit
gotta,
much? Yes, it was. It was
and it wasn't a bit much.
fantastical.
It was it
It
wasn't
was. Yeah.
well, no, I'll put it to you like this. I watch a million and one different, action films, and I won't
Yeah.
say it's a bit much or fantastical or anything. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I can watch The Equalizer and feel like, Queen Latifah or whether it's the Denzel version, both of them shouldn't be moving the way they moving. Steven Seagal included.
Yeah.
Like I can watch any of these movies and be like, I'm entertained.
Yeah.
I'm entertained by racist people getting their comeuppance. So, like, sometimes you just got to call it out for what it is. I can't shuck nor jive on this one.
Yeah.
The bottom line, I think, and that's sometimes what I think Ryan Coogler was even looking for is that, like, hey, sometimes at the end of your movie, you actually do want what you want.
Yeah.
And we saw these people just wanted to have a good time, get
Yeah.
victimized. and
Yeah.
somebody had to pay
Well,
more than the vampire.
well, I know when they showed that part in the trailer where he's just shooting at the screen, it was a powerful scene, and I was thinking like, that's a dope scene in slow motion with that gun, but how's that gonna help against vampires? And I was wondering that.
Yeah.
So when I saw it was in the daytime and who he was doing that to, I'm like, oh, okay, that's okay. 'Cause it seemed out of place to
I
me.
guess seeing it in daytime was the biggest clue that it
Right.
wasn't about the vampire. So here's the thing. I did not know going into it,
Yeah.
had no clue that vampires was it. When they revealed it was a vampire, I was just like,
Oh wow.
I was like, oh, it is okay, vampires. It could have been whatever it was gonna be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I did not care.
yeah.
Once they said vampires, I was like, bet it's
Mm,
vampires, we rolling with it. So had not watched trailers, had
yeah.
not watched
So smart.
interviews.
Yeah.
I went into it and was excited to find
Man.
out it was vampires. You know what
I
I'm
I
saying?
wish
Like,
I would have waited. I wish
yeah,
I could
it
have
was
had
worth
that
it.
because I thought they showed too
I'm gonna
much in
do
the
the same
trailer.
thing with the Jordan. Like, I accidentally just creeped up and watched the new Jordan Peele him trailer,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna
He
watch.
produced it only though. He didn't direct it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm not gonna watch two or three other
Me
ones as
either.
they drop. I'm just gonna. I saw that one yesterday by
Yeah.
accident,
Yeah.
and now I'm just gonna go straight to the movie theater in a year or whenever it drops.
All right. So two more things before we wrap up. What did you think of the second to last ending when you saw that, Preacher Boy, he wouldn't let go of that guitar piece, right? And you see him driving away and he's leaving. And then it does a flash forward to 1992
Mhm.
and we see the legendary Buddy Guy playing Choir Boy. What do you think about that ending for Choir Boy? For that scene to even pop up, to even go that far into the future with that same character?
No, I think it was beautiful. I think it was perfect. I think the idea that he went on to do what he wanted to do. He lived his life in the juke joints and he played the blues he wanted to play. He did the music. He did what he wanted to do.
So after his
And
dad warning him about that and the experience he ended up having, were you surprised he still went that way with it?
yeah, absolutely. There's so many people who feel like something's calling them so much
Mhm.
and the church fails to respond to their call.
Speaking to that
Mm,
church thing, what did you think about when it was almost like a baptism when they were in the water and he's in there with
mhm,
Remick and Choir Boy was saying the Lord's Prayer and
mhm.
Remick was saying it along with him
Mocking them. Yeah.
and dunking him
Yeah.
as he went along. What did you take that for
I,
meaning?
once again, I always like you can watch this along if depending on how much Bible you know,
Yeah,
right? You can like see the parallels where like these references are, but taken a step further, whatever.
yeah,
But I think we've always known that the devil and demons, they know scripture, they know stuff just as much as we do. And it's just like Jesus being tempted and being told, like, I'll give you this world if you follow me or whatever. It's like these things are there, they're real. And you going to church in your little bitty time frame of life up against this spiritual force that you believe is real and made you do something when you don't want to fess up to it was just you or whatever. If you believe that that's real, then you best believe that that knows more about existing than you do. And so when I saw him doing it and mocking him, I felt like that was like, I think sometimes it was weird because I felt like it wasn't just like a playful mock. I
no,
felt like he was seriously like, nah, this feels good. Some people play church because it feels good and innate to them. Like it feels like I know some people who can preach powerful. They have an anointing and a gift and they love tapping into it. But also on the same token, they love the sin. They love
mm,
the other stuff. And they do both simultaneously. They could do both simultaneously. Sometimes they stay away from it. But if you want to play preacher with them, they'll preach you under the table
right,
and then go back to drinking and doing something else.
right,
So
right.
it felt real. Like I felt
Yeah.
like he wasn't lying to him.
No, I agree. I was kind of curious on what that could have meant to his faith. Did he lose faith because of it? Or did it have any kind of effect on his decision to not to let go of that guitar piece and to do his own thing?
I think you
Um,
got to let go of evil. And if you don't let go of evil, it will do just like what his dad said. Like you can't play with sin before it just becomes this thing that's a part of you and you keep you're gonna dance with the devil. Like you're gonna dance. And he held on to that evil guitar piece, which we didn't get to that whole conversation of the twins' father being evil
He told him that guitar was from
from
some.
a famous
Yes,
musician, and he held on to it because of that. And he's
right.
like, no, it's from our. And this is why he warned him, like, I don't want to see you in these juke joints, because he knew that that was gonna lead to a lifetime of you being addicted to this evil, you being addicted to it keeps. It's like it's an addiction. You know, it takes a lot to pull a person out. Like it's as simple as I said. My original statement when you just asked me the question in a real world,
Yeah.
this is one of the things that we have to recognize as those who choose to call ourselves believers. We don't always get a chance. We don't have to match the world's standards and everything, but
True.
we do have to have a response to a hurting soul. And we will never be able to have a response. We just have to be vessels enough to allow Jesus to respond to their hurting soul through us.
Mm,
And that's through my Christian belief system. Like, I am never going to be smart enough. I'm never going to be wealthy enough. I'm never going to have enough to be able to answer the hard questions in life. When someone's like, why did my child die? Why did these things not happen?
right.
When someone's faith is rocked, you need to have enough faith to allow your faith to be activated. And whether that means to be quiet, you need to know how to respond, is what I'm saying,
No,
and meet people where they are.
that's true.
And yeah, but so I think the church in the Mississippi doing what the man says, making, getting up every day, breaking your back. It didn't have a response to the evil. Like, it didn't have a response to anything.
I agree. I
And
agree.
so why not hit the road and do this thing that's calling you? Because at least then you get a chance to see your ancestors in the future. You get a chance to be connected to something beautiful and feel something. Church, what are you gonna do?
That's
And I
something to take.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, and what's his name was trying to say, hey man, if you give it to God, like he's like, tell him, hey man, give your gifts and talents to God. And it's like, so far, he's like, the church has only represented me waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to have to, to pick cotton to get a chance to get a taste of the freedom. I still got to work hard and do this, or I can just go do me. I believe that most of us, when given that option, we probably go do us. Some
Yeah.
of us come running back like prodigal son, but a lot of us do us. And a lot of us, whether we want to admit it or not, whether we judge other people harshly, a lot of us are doing us right now. We
Right.
just don't know it. But we'll find out when we hear something like, depart from me.
Yeah.
I don't know you. So
And then the final ending, you got Preacher Boy at the bar having a drink after a set. His security guy comes out and says, "Hey, you got some visitors who paid some good money to see you. Is it all right for them to come on in?" Then the two visitors walk in.
Hey, Auntie.
Stack
uh
and Mary, they walk in and they pay him a little visit to their old friend, looking exactly the same, but in some 1990 attire. He got the uneven high top fade and the Cliff Huxtable sweater. And Mary's kind of all done up for hair slicked back. And they pay him a little visit and give him another offer to see if he wanted to live the rest of his life forever. They asked the question, was that also one of the best days of your life? I thought that was pretty powerful. We have days that really stands out to you and then it just turns on you. You just never know when it's going to flip on you. And I thought it was powerful to acknowledge, even though it was so much pain, because Stack was talking about how the last time he saw his brother, that's the last time he saw the sunset. And for Preacher Boy, it was powerful for him because he had this connection with music and he was independent. It's probably the first girl he was with. All these things happened that day and it just kind of turned. I thought it was powerful and I thought it was kind of cool inclusion of the situation. And then also to find out that the reason why his brother didn't kill him is he made him promise not to.
I thought it was good. I think the
Yeah.
fact that Mary was able to run away, And I guess I'm assuming so that he and maybe they just wasn't in the vicinity at the same time, and so they weren't harmed as much as he, I guess, because the rest of them was harmed in the fight. Like they were feeling what he was feeling. So maybe once they distanced themselves, they didn't feel the same.
Yeah, or maybe also too, I think if it wasn't just the pain that they were going through, also the fire from the sun, they catch it on fire. So maybe if they wasn't outside, they probably would have been okay from cover,
Oh,
you
that's
know.
right. They probably
So,
ran and got to cover.
and it's so funny, even though, okay, I think I would have felt a different ways about them surviving if I didn't already see Smoke have that ending with his lady and seeing his baby, which I thought was so powerful. So when I saw that, they kind of gave him that, even if it was in his head, I don't know, but it's kind of showed like your loved ones are waiting there for you, and that he was complete and had that. I felt a little better about seeing Stack with his lady, because at first I was thinking like, well, if that's the case and they survived that long and they still live, figuring out how they're gonna, they worked it out some kind of way, some kind of system to survive that long. His brother should have just been with him. Why not? But the fact that his brother had his conclusion with his,
Waiting
with
on,
his
yeah,
lady and his baby, that made me feel a little bit better about him not taking the choice of being with his brother forever.
yeah. Yeah, because you do. Yeah, I felt like that was perfect that they both ended up with who they were supposed to be with, like with their romantic interest or whatever. And I felt good about the way both of those characters ended, and I feel good about the potential of being able to see a storyline on how the adventures of Stack and Mary.
Yeah,
I think those that'd be good to see. Like I would like to see it in comic book form, whatever
yeah,
form they would want to do it. I do think that's going to be a really great thing.
yeah.
Um,
All right,
to leave the idea that we could talk about them in the 60s, 70s, or whatever,
right.
there's going to be a vampire hunter who's going to come after them at some point, all those type of things. Meanwhile, they're listening to his music in the background. They're listening to Sammy's music in the background. And I think that's super important. That ending was really good. And I like that they sold it up and gave a proper goodbye,
Yeah,
like, and they let us see how things end for him, opposed to just traveling down this obligatory, like, oh, anything could happen as he
right,
travels down that road.
right,
Like,
right.
no, he restored the evil guitar, and
Yeah.
he went on about his business. It's a lot to be said. There's little bitty things from the movie that was great. That's my final statement. Like, at one point when they were all eating the garlic, I really did honestly think that Delroy
Me
Lindo
too.
was more than just a drunk. I thought he had just spit it out, the garlic out into his sleeve. I was like,
Yeah.
surely this man is actually one of them. But
I drank too
he was
much,
just,
y'all. I
yeah,
drank.
he just drank too much. And even with her, when he pulled the gun out and was like, either you eat this, and
Yeah,
and then the way he popped Sammy in the mouth, I'm like, that was appropriate.
yeah.
Like, because he's like, I'm trying to protect you.
Right. And he said that.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that was important. So there was a lot of scenes that I loved in the movie that I think I'm gonna calm down off of it. And in about 2 weeks, I might be like, it was all right. You know what I'm saying? But for right now, I still am hard pressed to say in theaters, I've
Mhm.
seen probably maybe the best movie since American Fiction for me.
Wow.
I don't know. Maybe you can probably convince me that there's some other ones that I'm forgetting.
It's been slim pickings out here, man, especially Black Lead. This movie had me anyway. My favorite part about this movie is that a black man wrote and directed it. He struck up a deal after 25 years. Him and his family will own the rights to it. So it'll be in his family. It is a character that it wasn't like with Black Panther, as good as that was. A white person created that character. Blackness fed into it to make it the great thing that it is, but it doesn't hold our name or connection with us really. It's Disney, not set in quote unquote black person who created it. So for something like this to be out there that's being well received, well reviewed, and it's all his, I want to see more of this from other artists. Because sometimes you have it where somebody is great when they have a big studio behind them, and when they do a thing on their own, the wind is sucked out of it, and it's this thing that it's not quite in the same standards and the same light, so it doesn't do as well as the thing that they did with backing. I think he did a comparable piece to match his other stuff that was backed and owned by other people. This isn't Sylvester Stallone owning the character. This isn't Stan Lee, Disney, Marvel owning the character. This is Ryan Coogler wrote and directed his characters and got a deal to have the rights go back to him and his family. And it's not a bad movie at all. And so I'm proud. I'm so proud
That's a
and,
good way.
and impressed by it. And I want to see more. He gave me this. I want to see more. I expect more. And I'm not talking about compromise stuff. I'm talking about telling our truth through our art and our story, not compromise work to get a quick buck or that's going to, get attention because you're playing into stereotypes and stuff like that. No, I want truth. Even if it's a sci-fi or if it's a horror film with music, truth. It rings different. I want that. I want that. I don't want compromised work. And like I said, you could like or not like this movie, but you could tell that he put himself in this and it supersedes all the other stuff. So regardless of what you catch and don't catch, you feel that something really in this. And I'm glad that happened. That's rare. And the movie you referred to before this, American Fiction, the same thing. The same thing. And so I expect and I want more. And I want it to be just as different. Like this was different from what I would have thought even a Blade movie would have been. It found a way to do something else and ring with a lot of truths in it. And it's layered and yeah, it was great to see, and I will be seeing it again. And good on him for it.
All right. Well, thank you, man, for having me come on
Thank you for
to
coming on.
discuss this. Yeah.
Yeah.
We yeah, we might have to like in a few months do another conversation about our second viewing,
Okay.
like just to talk about what did we miss?
Yeah.
Can we make something clear? You know what I'm saying? Like let's
Okay.
clear up the mess because
Yeah.
like it was good though. But yeah, thank you once again for having me on and I always have a good time. I was sitting in the theater thinking like, man, me and Jay got to talk about this. I don't know if I'll make the list of people to get a chance to talk about the good stuff, but but I
You
was
are
like,
a mess, but I
I'm
love
on
you,
I
man.
know I'm on the Club Shay Shay list, but I was like, I don't know if I could get something this good. But the fact that I got Sinners, I'm like, he is risen. It is a good day.
I love you
Yeah.
too, man. I love you too. That was Jay and Drew. Until next time. Peace.
All right, man. Peace.
Ooh,